Good evening and welcome to the second episode of Warriorology Academy. Tonight we're going to be talking about one of my favorite subjects of all, servant leadership, and the part that it plays not only in the field of law enforcement but also in everyday life. So what exactly is servant leadership? When we look at servant leadership, we look at people like Gandhi, people like Mother Teresa, and the biggest example when you look at Greenleaf's books and research that he did focuses around Jesus Christ. And it is not specifically for religious purposes, but how he interacted with people. Being a servant leader is putting your people first. Understanding that our staff, our first line officers, are the ones that are doing all the work. They're interacting with the community. They're out there and they're the face of the agency. So you need to provide them with the tools that they need to be successful. You need to take the focus off of yourself. Realize that this is, as we always say, is a bigger calling than ourselves. Being in law enforcement, if you can think back to when you had your first interviews coming into the job, they asked you, why do you want to be a cop? Why do you want to get into this field? And I can guarantee you 99.9% of us said, I want to help people. When you become a leader in your agency, even in everyday life, if you're not in law enforcement, you're watching this. Servant leadership is about looking out for other people. It's about taking the focus off of yourself and helping others be successful. It's about seeing the potential in people that they may not see themselves. One of my favorite things about my job is when I get to work with newer staff members or even staff members that have been there for years, and other members of the command staff may have their opinions about them. But you see that little bit, that little flash in them when you give them a certain project to do, or you ask them to take care of a task for you, or you just kind of sit back and watch them as they do their job where others may not. And you see the things, the areas where they really are great at. And we have to realize not all of us are good at everything. But each of us has special gifts, special talents, and special areas where we really excel where others may not. And we need to surround ourselves with people that will help lift our weaknesses up. When we talk about servant leadership, it's also about seeing the best in people. It's about, if you're a shift commander, about taking those people that are on your shift, understanding their talents and their weaknesses, not just looking at them as bodies. You find out where their strengths are and you match them up with folks who highlight their weaknesses and help raise that area of their life up, or their performance up, if you will. If you look at the example of Jesus, the story of the lady by the well, Jesus took someone that was an outcast in her village because of what she had done. She was a prostitute. But he saw the good in her. He saw the potential in her, and he talked to her. He saw what others couldn't because he knew her. You look at people like Mother Teresa. She always found the best in people. You need to do that as a leader in your field. You need to be able to look at the folks that are on your team as individuals, not as bodies on your shift to make up your numbers or anything like that. You need to look at the people on your shift, find their strengths, accentuate them. Where they have weaknesses, help them bring that up. Your goal should not be how many accolades can I get myself? It's how can I take the people that are on my shift, the guys and girls that are working for me, and highlight them? How can I bring them up? A lot of times you'll hear people talk about the legacy that they're going to leave. And in law enforcement, a lot of the times you do your 20, 25 years, whatever your retirement may be, you get your cake, you get your plaque, you get your shadow board, and at the end of that, you walk out the door and that's the end. One of the things I hear a lot from retirees is that I don't hear from the guys that I worked with anymore. And they lose that association that they've had for so many years, that bond. And one of our failures in law enforcement is that we very rarely have friends outside of our field because we don't trust people. One of the things I'll talk about in a different episode is things to do to make yourself better in our field. And one of them is to find areas outside of the field, people outside of the field that have absolutely nothing to do with law enforcement. They don't care that you're a cop. They care about you as a person. It'll give you a different perspective on life than the jaded one that we often have. So when we get back to talking about servant leadership, I want to read a Bible verse to you. And this is one that you've probably heard before. It's at weddings all the time. It's one of the most popular Bible verses there is. It's Corinthians 13, 4 through 5. Love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. It does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. And it keeps no record of wrongs. Now, what I want you to do is take that very verse I just read to you, and I want you to replace the word love with leadership. When you do, you have yourself a servant leader. Leadership is patient. Leadership is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. It does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. And it keeps no record of wrongs. One of the things that I love the most about the sheriff that I work for is she will tell you from day one, you may make a mistake and you're going to come into my office and we're going to have a discussion about it, but when you leave, that is over with. There isn't the 2 years down the road when a promotion comes up, that issue comes back again. We should not be easily angered. As leaders, we need to understand that everyone is at different levels, that everyone grows at a different pace, that everyone excels in certain areas, and not everybody is going to be that stellar go-getter officer that's out doing everything. You'll have those officers that want to come and they want to do their shift and they want to go home, and that's great. That's going to make up majority of your team. But when you have those officers that excel, the officers that want to get promoted, the officers that maybe don't want to get promoted into rank, but they want to go into a different division, they want to be a detective, they want to do different details, help them grow into that. Because at the end of the day, when you retire, those same people that you helped are going to stand at the podium and they're going to tell you about that. They're going to remind you of the things that you've long forgotten about how you helped them or how you reacted to a situation where they thought that you were going to react differently. I had a young lady that worked for me when she first came out of the academy, and she had an incident occur, and I was her shift commander, and I had forgotten about it. It was something to me, it was a mistake. She made it, we discussed it, and I was done with it. But when she left a few years later, she left a card for me in my mailbox. And she talked in detail about the conversation that we had that night. And she talks about how I didn't overreact to it, and how I took her out and walked across the street and got a cup of coffee, and the first thing I told her was breathe. You're going to be fine with this. You made a mistake. We're going to grow from it. We're going to get better, and we're not going to make it again. And in the several years that I've worked with her, that stuck with her, and she remembered it, and it had completely slipped my mind. But it was one of the best letters that I've ever gotten from anybody. Because out of just doing something that came natural to me, because I understood she was a new officer, I understood that she made a mistake, and I also knew when she came to my office that she was going to be stressed out. And I could have very easily blew up, I could have yelled, I could have disciplined her, I could have done all that. But I would have never got the same result. I'm not telling you to do that every time, because there are situations that we encounter where discipline needs to be taken. It has to be done. There are some mistakes that they have to be addressed, and there are some where a person may lose their job. That's just part of the career. But in a lot of these instances, we can use them as learning experiences and use them to help those individuals get better, and hopefully one day surpass our wildest dreams. Wherever we may think we're going to end up at, they go past that and they reach ranks way above us, and we may in fact one day be answering to them. And a lot of people get freaked out by that, and that to me is the greatest legacy you can leave behind. Whether it be one of your folks is now outranking you and is your boss, or whether it's one of those things where you get a card in your mailbox at the end of the day when they've moved on to their next career. That to me, when I got that, made my day, and it proved to me that the way that I have been a leader or attempted to be a leader, and I haven't always done everything right by any stretch of the imagination. I'll be the first to tell anybody that I work for that. I don't know everything, and I don't pretend to. I may have the newest person on the shift, and I may not, they may be doing something on a computer I don't understand, and I'm going to go sit down and ask them to show me how to do it, because I'm not above that. I want to learn. And I think as a servant leader, that's another key to that. You want to never stop learning. And you want to learn from your people, and you understand that while somebody may have only been there a year and you've been there for 25, that person that's been there for a year has skills that you have no idea how to do any of that stuff. Especially now when you're having the younger folks coming in, that everything is technology centered. They know how to run these computers like nobody's business. They're on their phones. They know how to get to certain things. They know how to collect data and information that for some of the old timers like us is much harder to do. And you'll go sit in classes and you always hear the old timers talk about millennials. Millennials this, millennials that. That's great. To me, that's a cop-out. The kids that are coming in today, the young adults, they have a skill set in technology that we don't. And we should be taking advantage of that. When you have somebody new come in and they have a certain skill set, whether it be financial or whether it be technology, or whether it be training, instead of going through the same pattern, A, B, C, everybody has to go through this, then this, then this, then this. Break out of that. Think outside the box and take those people and put them where they will excel and watch them grow. Everybody doesn't need to take the cookie cutter pathway in this career. Think outside the box and be a different type of leader. Don't remember when you first got promoted, because we all do it. I'm never going to be like this sergeant was. I'm never going to be like this captain was or this lieutenant was. And then 5 years down the road, you're doing the same thing that you complained about when you first got promoted. Think outside the box. Stop worrying about where your career is taking you and worry about your team. How can I make this the most effective, efficient team? And how can I put everybody in the right position for us to do the best job and to represent our agency the best that we can? So when I talk about servant leadership, I'm going to talk about some of the characteristics of it. Number one, you have got to be a good listener. Because in those conversations that you're going to have with your folks, that's where you're going to gain tons of knowledge. They may mention something that they do outside of work. They may mention a hobby that they have, and that's a talking point that you can come back to at a different time when you need to connect with them. So make sure you listen. Don't have all the solutions going through your head and thinking of what your answer is going to be while the person is talking. Listen to what they're saying. Be empathetic and treat people the way that you want to be treated. Basic concept 101. Your parents taught you that when you were a little child. Treat others as you want to be treated. The golden rule. Healing. This is so important in our field right now. We've had, the last time I saw, we had 163 suicides among law enforcement officers. Healing is a key to this job, and for so long we have failed at it. We've made everyone feel like they have to be strong, they have to be tough, and if you ask for help, you're weak. And that is not the case. Help those people heal. When you see they're struggling, whether it's work, whether it's home, when you see differences in them, talk to them and listen. Pick up on the cues that they're giving you and provide them with resources. Helping your folks get back to that optimal performance level is better for everybody. You're going to get the best performance out of them. You're going to have a loyal person on your team every day forward after that, because you took the time to listen and to help them when other people did not. Be aware of what's going on around you. Be aware of the atmosphere of your shift. When you walk into roll call, what's going on? How's everybody acting? When you're seeing your folks individually, are they acting the way they usually do, or are they not? And if they're not, ask them, something going on? Do you want to talk? Can we, let's go grab a cup of coffee. That's been my go-to thing forever. Take them away from wherever that environment is that you normally are. Go sit down and grab a cup of coffee and just shoot the breeze and talk. Doesn't have to be about work. Just let them vent. And if it's something about you, if they have criticism of you, as long as they're doing it in a professional manner, don't get all bent out of shape about it. You're not perfect. None of us are. We all make mistakes. We all have things that get under other people's skin. You have got to be mature enough to take criticism, because you expect that of your folks. When you give them your speech when they first come to shift and you're telling them what your expectations are, that's one of them. You need to take constructive criticism, but yet we fail to do it a lot of the time. Whatever your expectations are for them, they should be the same you have for yourself. And while we're talking about that, ask your people what their expectations are for you. Have them, when you do a review with them, let them do one on you. There's not very many people that want to get involved in those type of evals. To me, it's a learning experience. It helps me see where I'm making mistakes at. It helps me to be able to grow more. And yeah, there's going to be people that just are going to, say stuff to say stuff. But you'll find a majority of your team will give you honest feedback. But you have to be able to listen to it, as long as they're doing it in a respectful manner, and put that out there in your expectations. You're no better than anybody else is. A servant leader is there to talk to their people. They're there to serve their people. They're there to listen and provide them with the tools they need to succeed. They, your team members, are the ones that are out in the field. They're doing the job, and you want them to be at the highest level they can. You want them to be physically, mentally fit for duty, ready to go. You want them coming into work, and you want them to be ready to go. You want clear heads, and when you see that they don't have one and something's bothering them, pull them aside. You might be down somebody for a little bit, but I guarantee you the time you take to talk to them is going to be paid back tenfold. Let them get off their chest what they need to get off of. Let them clear their heads and then get back in the game and be focused on what they need to do. Not doing their job while they're focused on whatever else it may be, because that's when mistakes happen, and that's when lawsuits occur. That's when liability happens. Not only for us, but for them, and we don't want that to happen. We don't want anybody on our team to fail. When we have folks that we bring into our agencies, we want them all to be successful. Focus your time on those people that want to grow and want to learn. We spend most of our time on the people that cause problems and are problems. Deal with them. Being a servant leader doesn't mean being a servant to everybody. It doesn't mean bending over backwards, looking past errors, and allowing people to get away with everything. Being a servant leader means holding people accountable for their actions. You give them expectations, and when they don't follow them, you hold them accountable. That's what a servant leader does. And by doing that, you're providing them the tools that they need. You're either going to help them grow or help them go. It's that simple. We'll waste years on somebody that shouldn't be here for more than a month because we fail to hold people accountable and address issues because it's uncomfortable. When you are in a leadership position, you're not in that position to be friends with everybody. You have a job to do. But when you have the servant leadership mentality, you understand that people need you there. They need you to listen. They need you to be empathetic towards them at times, but not all the time. You're not there to hold their hand to do the job. You're there to provide the tools to do it properly. And when they don't, you provide accountability to help them fix it. And when they do not fix it, then you provide more accountability. And it may be a situation where you have to show them the door. But that's also part of being a servant leader. And that may be the biggest help that you do for that person. The last characteristic that I'll talk about is being persuasive. When we get into leadership, There's going to be times where the command staff above us has a message for our line staff that they don't like. And as a leader, it's our job to help them see the benefit of doing it, why we're doing it. As Simon Sinek says, start with why. When you go into roll call and you have a new directive that's coming out, some new procedure, why are you doing it? Get the answers to those questions before you go in front of your folks, when you can. There's going to be times that you can't. There are going to be times where they roll out and you have to go with them. But when you have the opportunity, ask the questions that you know you're going to get asked by your folks. Your job is to provide them with the tools to succeed. And one of those things is the why. So often in our field, we don't give them the why. We just say, we gave you an order, do it. It's not the way to go about it. Provide them with the why. Let them know, hey, I understand you may not like this. This may not be what everybody expected. It may not be what you want, but this is what we have to do, and here's why we're doing it. Help them see the big picture. One of the hugest things in servant leadership, and one of the most uncomfortable things for the people that are normally at the top, is turning that triangle upside down, where leadership is usually way up here and your line staff is down here. Who has the most interaction with the community that you're serving? It's your line staff. The most interaction with the public, the people that are out there that represent the agency, are the line staff, the front line men and women. And that is why it is so important to be a servant leader in this field and provide them with the tools they need. Take that triangle and turn it upside down. Leadership's at the bottom, the command staff, whatever your agency refers to that group as, they are at the bottom. And they are going to provide the tools up to the supervisors, the lieutenants, the sergeants that are the buffer in between your line staff and your frontline men and women. You are a servant to them. Provide them with what they need to be successful and to represent your agency in the best possible way. We serve the public, and like I said in the very beginning, we all got into this job. We all did it because we wanted to help somebody. Our job is to serve our community. Where the command staff can come in, get out and interact with the community. Be at events. You see events like Coffee with a Cop, golf tournaments. They may have like open public hearings where they can ask the sheriff questions or the police chief questions. Be out there and be a servant to the people that we serve. You see so many issues that are brewing around this country in law enforcement. How often do we try to build that bridge from both sides? We need to talk, and we need to build the bridge and fix that gap that's between us. And until we can at least sit down at the table together, we're not getting anywhere. Servant leadership is not just for your staff. It's for the community you serve. You took an oath to serve and protect them. Provide them the service that you promised. You're going to have tough conversations while you're out there, but majority of it is going to be an amazing experience when you get out and you talk to the people in the community, you're playing with their kids, You're hearing about issues that are going on, and while you're doing that, it might actually start making you think about some different stuff you can do. When you're listening to your frontline folks, they're going to be able to tell you because they're out there interacting with them every day. This is one of the biggest things why you have to listen when you're talking to them. They're your eyes and your ears for the biggest issues there are. They interact with the community day in and day out. They should be at the top, and that is why. To be a great leader, you must first be a great servant. The individuals I discussed in the beginning, Mother Teresa, Gandhi, Jesus Christ, Martin Luther King. The list can go on and on and on, and everybody will give you different folks. Every one of those individuals was not about them. It was about being a servant to the people. They saw the people that wanted to grow. They saw the people that had potential that couldn't see it in themselves. They raised them up. They gave them hope. They gave them a cause to stand up for. They showed them compassion. They gave them courage. Being a servant leader by no means is about being weak. Servant leaders are the strongest leaders you will find because they are humble. They're aware of what's going on, but they know that there's something bigger than themselves. And at the end of the day, for a servant leader, it's not plaques and awards, accolades, none of that stuff. It's great to get it, but that's not what it's about. When you get those little cards in your mailbox, when you get promoted and the staff walk up to you, the frontline men and women, and they stop and sincerely shake your hand and say, congratulations, you deserved it. That's what it's about. When they bring their families to meet you and they tell their families about what you've done for them, that's better than any plaque or any award that you can put on your wall. My hope when I retire, not for a shadow board, it's not for the cake or any other accolade thing. My hope is I have people that stand at that podium and talk about how I made a difference to them. My hope is that some of my families that I've worked with over the years from National Police Week will be there and talk about a difference that I may have made for them. Maybe somebody as a peer support counselor that I interacted with one-on-one comes forward and talks about that. But my biggest hope is that the day I retire is that my kids stand up there and they talk about how, yeah, my dad was a cop, but my dad was a dad. My dad was a leader at home. My dad took time for me. He answered my questions. And when we spent time together, while it may not have been a lot, and he may have missed things here and there to be with you guys, the time that we did spend together while he was here was always important to me. He taught me lessons. One of the best retirements I ever went to, one of our lieutenants retired, and his daughter got up and gave one of the best speeches I've ever heard about her dad being a dad. And while it wasn't the greatest when he missed things, she understood what his passion was. She understood why he worked so much. And she loved sharing him with us. But the time that she had with him, the lessons that he taught her, the things that he did in his career that taught her lessons as well. I've been in this field 22 years and seen a lot of retirements. That speech by far was better than anything I've ever seen. Because it came from his kid. His daughter stood there, and everybody in that room, there was no dry eyes. That's what being a leader is about. It's not about how far can I get in my career. It's not about who can I throw under the bus or stab in the back to get ahead. Being a leader is about serving your team. It's about being there, being present, knowing your individuals, their strengths and their weaknesses, and being able to put them in the group where they can be the strongest asset to the team, yet still grow and still get better and attain the goals that they want. Even if those goals may mean they don't want to be a law enforcement officer for the rest of their life. Maybe they want to be an accountant. Maybe they want to go do something else. This is a job that they've wanted to do, and they want to do it for a few years. Make this the best experience that they've ever had, and be the supervisor that when they retire, they remember you because of you being a servant leader. You hear more and more about servant leadership in the last year or so than, at least in my opinion, that I've heard in my entire career. Because people are beginning to see the importance of it. People see that when you're a servant to your staff, to your front line men and women, the performance level goes way up. And you start to see accountability amongst themselves. When you have a leader that's a servant that makes your job easier and that's going to provide you with the tools that you need, and you know that that person genuinely cares about you and wants you to succeed, failing in their eyes to you is the worst thing you can do. And you're going to bend over backwards to make sure you do your best job for them. Your staff want to be respected, they want to be listened to, and they want to feel as safe as they possibly can in the environment that they're in. And in our job, we all know our goal is to go home at the end of the night, and we also understand every call could be your last. But when you have that person that is in charge of the group, and you know that they're there for you and they're making sure you have the right training, they're making sure that you are getting to be the best officer that you can be, you look forward to coming to work. You look forward to being there, and you feel safe when you're there. You know your team's going to be there, and you know that that leader has you back. The benefits of being a servant leader are priceless. You're going to cut down sick calls. You're going to cut down just stupid errors that happen. You're going to keep people's mind in the game because they want to do their best for you, because you're doing that for them. If you have never read anything about servant leadership, Google it. Robert Greenleaf is the guy. He's the guru of servant leadership. Read anything by him, papers, books, whatever it is. Take the time to read it if you're a leader or an aspiring leader. If you're trying to become a leader, start reading up on it now so that when you step into that position, you've already got that. It's tough enough transitioning from a frontline officer to a sergeant, but when you already have that servant leadership mentality, it becomes a whole lot easier. And as a leader, one of the biggest things to remember is even the newest staff member should be treated with the same level of dignity and respect as the sheriff or the chief. You should never treat anybody any differently than you would if the sheriff or the chief were standing right next to them. That says tons about your character as a leader. And you will gain the respect of your staff so quickly when you treat them with that same level of respect. And they see that when the sheriff comes in or the police chief comes in, the way you act around them versus the way you act around the men and women that work with you, when they see it's the same, that there is no difference, you've gained a level of respect that many other leaders will never know. Servant leadership's often talked about in the business aspect, in the work life, but it's not just about business. It's a way of living. Be a servant to your family. Be a servant to those around you. If you go to church, to the members of your church. If you're in a group, a men's group, a woman's group, whatever it may be, serve. You've been told since you were a kid, it's always better to give than receive. There is no truer message than that. When you give of yourself to help others, the return you get is better than anything money could buy. The thank you at the end, the letter years down the road, there is nothing of monetary value that can top that. And I can guarantee you, when you get to the end of your career and those people are standing there at your retirement, and they're lined up and they're talking about how you made a difference in their life, in their career, you will never receive any gift any better than that. When your family stands up there, when you hear from one of your children's teachers that your child was at school and talked about how your dad or your mom does this to help them out or does this to help the community out. We recently had a suicide in the local area here, and when it was posted on social media, the officer he was an SRO, worked for one of the schools, and many of the students took the time to post messages about what that officer had done for them, what he meant to them, and the difference that he made in their life, and what a great person he was. The sad thing was that all came after the fact. If you're watching this and you have a servant leader that works with you or that has helped you, let them know now the importance that they have brought to your life, the difference that their actions have made. Even if it wasn't something they did for you, but you witnessed them do something with somebody else, take the time to thank them and to tell them how important that was and what a great thing that was. So often, especially in our career, we don't hear those things. Most of the folks that put on a badge, they don't want awards, they don't want plaques. Most of us don't want to be brought up in front of a group and honored for stuff. But when somebody comes up to you and says, hey, I saw you do this the other day, or you stopped and helped my kid because their tire was flat, or they send that little note to your department, that means so much to those men and women. So if you have anybody in your life that's a servant leader, that serves others, that serves you, take a few minutes, write them a note, write them a card, pick up the phone and call them and tell them how important they are to you and what a great benefit that whatever their action was made in your life. A lot of times when I'm speaking places, it has to do with PTSD. It has to do with the epidemic of suicide. And the biggest thing that we try to do when somebody is in crisis is get them to see the value that they have, the value that their life has, and why they need to hold on. That little note from you may be that difference. Maybe that one little thing that they've forgotten about. But when they get it, just completely changes their day. And it may just make them realize that, hey, I do have some value here and somebody appreciates me. So take a few minutes. I know everybody's got a busy schedule, but take a few minutes and knock that one out. It'll be the best thing that you've done today. So this has gone a lot longer than I was expecting it to, but I get on this topic and it means so much to me, and I've seen it work. I have been fortunate enough in my career to work for a few very good servant leaders they've changed my life. They have made my life better for just knowing them. Not even for the career aspect of it, but just for knowing them. So if you're in a leadership role or you're striving to be in a leadership role, read up on servant leadership. And every day challenge yourself to do one little thing to make yourself more of a servant leader. Serve your people, serve your family, serve your fellow man or woman in your community, and I can guarantee you the rewards that you will get in this lifetime are beyond anything that money can buy. Stay safe while you guys are out there, especially for the men and women that I have the honor and privilege to call brothers and sisters, that put on that badge, and even more for the men and women that are overseas serving this country. God bless you. Stay safe until the next time. Keep that warrior mentality. Keep growing and never stop learning. Become a servant leader.